You are Locked On Tigers Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, the Tigers of old showed up tonight, and they lose to the Cleveland Guardians 2-1. Final 16 batters of the game retired in order, and just zero offense. Welcome one, welcome all. It's time for a live edition of Locked On Tigers Postcast. Even though the Tigers are back to their insufferable ways, I'm fired up to be with you. I am your host, Jake Rietma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Rietma. And like I said, even though the Tigers didn't put their best foot forward tonight, hey, we've got a lot to break down. I thought the bullpen blew it at the end, and it was just a little bit of bad defense here, a little bit of there. The Guardians are a good team, no offense, and ultimately it all plays out to a 2-1 defeat. But Jack Flaherty was really good. It might have been his last start in a Tigers uniform. We will discuss that because obviously, with him being on an expiring deal and a rental for a contending team, perhaps he is a trade piece that is moved at the upcoming deadline. And once again, the Tigers have no arms to pitch tomorrow, so it will likely be another bullpen day in the finale of the 4-game series in Cleveland at Progressive Field. So that's what's on tap for tonight's show. Thanks as always for making Locked On Tigers Postcast your destination following the final out. We've got you covered. And don't forget, Locked On Tigers Postcast is your destination. It's your first listen after the final out, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, on YouTube, it's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. This episode of Locked On Tigers Postcast is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And we'll start with the bullpen because Bo Brisky, and ultimately it's his run, but you can't come out of the bullpen in a tie game in the 8th inning and throw 6 consecutive balls. It's just losing baseball. And we'll get to the comments here in just a moment. If you're watching on the live YouTube version on Locked On Sports Detroit, we appreciate that. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. But Bo Brisky has to be able to handle himself better in a big spot than to put himself behind in the 8-ball and come in throwing 6 straight balls, put a man on that ultimately comes around and is the game-winning run in a 2-1 game. But that said, that's not the only reason the Tigers lost this game, because again, when you are retired the final 16 consecutive batters, you're not going to win a lot of games. You're not going to win a lot of games when you score 1 run and it's in the first inning. And this unfortunately feels like the same show we did countless times in the month of June and some in July and even in May with this Tigers offense. And another game in which they lose 2-1 where, I don't know, maybe a bat could have helped. Maybe another bat in this lineup could have helped, but it's all hypothetical. And what's not hypothetical is this team now is 3 games under 500. And after a promising start to the second half of the season, they've now played 500 ball at post All-Star break and are 50-53, 26-30 away from home. All right. That being said, I do want to discuss that 8th inning in more detail. And even actually, let's jump back to the first Guardians run in the bottom of the 5th, where it's not Jack Flaherty's fault, I think, in a lot of ways. I mean, he gets the first 2 outs of the inning in that 5th inning, and then a harmless 2-out single, a pass ball from Carson Kelly, which a big league catcher, I just don't understand how that happened. It's a physical mistake, yes, but he just misses the ball that allows the runner to move up to second, and all of a sudden the Bo Naylor harmless 2-out single puts a man in scoring position with 2 outs, and Steven Kwan then singles him home. And it's the first and only run that Jack Flaherty gave up, and it's the second time this season in which the Tigers have lost a 2-1 game to Cleveland where Jack Flaherty deserved better. And I think as he's had a number of those starts where there's just been no offense, if he does end up getting traded at the deadline, probably go to a contending team that actually, I don't know, scores some runs for him. And that would be a welcome sight for Jack Flaherty mentally, I'm sure, because again, this was the Tigers team of old. And I don't want to harp on it too much, but instant reaction, that's how I feel right now, where this was a game that the Tigers could have had. And Dan Petrie said on the broadcast, you felt like they deserved better. No, they didn't deserve better. They didn't make anything happen. And again, in a big spot, they folded in the sense that Bo Brisky comes in, walks a batter, and eventually comes around to score. And even on that 3-0 swing on the eventual, or what was the game-winning RBI, on the 3-0 swing on the single, it just felt like, I don't know. I mean, Josh Naylor gets the single to center, Bo Naylor scores. And I don't know if I couldn't tell like the kind of jump that Colt Keith got on it. Dan Petrie kind of questioned why he didn't dive, but it just felt like it was such a anticlimactic game-winning RBI single, especially on a 3-0. He chopped it into the ground. It was just that seeing eye ground ball that sometimes in baseball, in a lot of sports, it's better to be lucky than good. But that's how tonight ends, with that seeing eye ground ball single. And I mean, you knew the Tigers weren't scoring a run in the ninth. I mean, with Javi Baez coming up, let me see who they had bat in the ninth inning. There was just no chance with Baez batting in the ninth and the rest of the cast that the Tigers sent to the plate in that top of the ninth. I'm sorry. Baez grounds out. Wenzel Perez strikes out. Colt Keith did have a good at-bat. Got to give him credit there. He walked, but Vierling, who did provide the only offense, grounds out to end the game. And you look at the box score up and down. It's just a game from weeks past in which this Tigers offense just was a whole big fat nothing at the plate. Wenzel Perez 0 for 4, Colt Keith 1 for 3, Vierling 1 for 4 with the home run, and big fat goose eggs from everybody else. Riley Green 0 for 2, Mark Canha 0 for 3, Carson Kelly 0 for 3, Zach McKinstry 0 for 3, Gio Urshela 0 for 3, Javi Baez 0 for 3. And this was the type of game that just reminds you that maybe this team isn't for real. Maybe this is more of who they are. And if anybody can remember one of the all-time post-game head coach meltdown press conferences, Denny Green, when he was coaching, Denny Green, rest in peace, when he was coaching for the Arizona Cardinals and they blew that game against the Bears. I think it was on Monday Night Football. He said, they are who we thought they were. They are who we thought they were. They are who we thought they were. That's how I felt about the Tigers tonight, or how I feel about the Tigers tonight. They are who we thought they were. But let's get to the comments. A lot of people want to get in. As always, we love having the collaboration component to Locked On Tigers postcast. Let your voice be heard. Get those comments in on the live YouTube show here. We begin with YouTube user. We got to fix that, man. We need a better username. I don't know if that's a glitch or something, but those are the Tigers bats I remember for most of the season. Yep, exactly. And here's another NFL coach reference. I love it. We've just got all kinds of post-game NFL coaching reference meltdowns here. As Jim Mora would say, playoffs. Yep, exactly. That's how we feel tonight. And I even jokingly put it in my tweet. Sell after tonight. Demetrius McNeil, Matt Vierling, and Colt Keith have the only 2 hits for the Tigers all game, and that came back to bite them. Time to prepare for tomorrow. Yeah, you can still salvage a split in the day game tomorrow, but again, you don't have a pitcher to pitch for you. All right, YouTube user, do you think we hear about roster moves tonight before the day game tomorrow? I honestly, I don't know. I know Evan Petzel of the Free Press, who does such a great job, had an article out behind a paywall. I used to be a member or have the login for the Free Press. It didn't work for whatever reason, but that's neither here nor there. So I didn't have a chance to read the article on that one, to be honest with you. We won a lot of April games, only scoring a few runs. Yeah, that's true, but you're just not going to win a lot of games. You're not going to win games scoring 1 run. You're not going to shut a team out like Cleveland. There's too many bats in that lineup. All righty. All catchers drop to a knee these days. Oh, in reference to Carson Kelly's pass ball. Yeah, that pass ball was tough. I just don't think just because other catchers do it or we're seeing more pass balls, I don't think that makes it acceptable, especially when that costs the Tigers the run. All right, we'll take a quick break here and break down Jack Flaherty's nice start and potentially his last start as a Tiger. We're just getting started here on Locked On Tigers postcast. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment. This episode of Locked On Tigers postcast is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. Hey, we know summer travel is heating up, especially traveling for baseball games. It's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Now, I know Cleveland doesn't fall into that category by any means, but hey, the Tigers got a lot of cool road trips coming up. I know they go out west not too long, probably in August at some point. There's a little road trip. Maybe you want to go see him in San Francisco at Oracle Park. Been there. Beautiful park on the bay. You also got the Coliseum, the last year of the Coliseum. Maybe you want to make a road trip out there. And with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival's city. Listen, I remember as a kid, and I've told you about this one before, but going to Toronto, because apparently the Toronto Blue Jays are the Tigers' biggest rival, because that's who they'll be playing in rivalry week next year as Major League Baseball introduces that. But we had a great time as a kid. I remember the scene in downtown Toronto, soaking it all in, taking the train, and Booking.com can help you make those memories last a lifetime, because Booking.com has got you covered. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or on the Booking.com app. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this season. Hey, Locked On Tigers postcast is also brought to you by the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. That's Prize Picks. All you got to do is go to prizepicks.com, download the app today, use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. If you don't know about Prize Picks by now, let me tell you, you're missing out completely. That's right, because Prize Picks, you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. And hey, how about this summer games? Get in on the excitement, win up to 100 times your cash with the summer games on Prize Picks. With Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 while watching Team USA rack up the gold medals this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup with players across sports like basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and so much more in as little as 60 seconds. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a first deposit match up to $100. You pick more, you pick less. It's that easy. All right, appreciate everybody tuning in as always. And the fact of the matter is, we have to consider the realistic possibility that this might have been Jack Flaherty's last start in a Tigers uniform. The trade talk certainly heating up. And as you kind of take the temperature of where this Tigers team might be at from an organizational standpoint, you might get the sense, and depending on who you ask, who you talk to, I've been having some conversations here and there, maybe they do sell at the deadline, but not as big of a fire sale as, say, maybe trading Tarek Skubal, but rather trading Jack Flaherty. Obviously, the brainchild and the Tigers brass that would be in Scott Harris in the front office decided to give Kenta Maeda the 2-year deal and Jack Flaherty the 1-year deal, which as we all know, the production and would also back this up. That was not a wise decision, but Jack Flaherty would be a rental for some team that would be willing to go all in on a playoff push. And if you're not able to re-sign him, you want to get something for him. But hey, tonight he was really, really good once again. 6 innings, 3 hits, and just the 1 earned run, which again, or the one run, it was not earned. That's a great point. I caught myself there. My apologies. Just the one run, because you feel like if Carson Kelly doesn't allow that pass ball for no reason at all, then you've got a runner on first, and it's just two harmless singles. Who knows what would have happened if he could get out of that jam with 2 on and 2 out. But instead, it is, in fact, a game-tying single because of the runner that was on second in that home half of the 5th inning. But Flaherty goes 6 innings. He was really, really good. Threw 96 pitches, 60 of them for strikes. ERA's at 2.95, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks. And not that, you can't count on the bullpen, I guess, to just be completely flawless. But Bo Brisky, I've harped on it. I harped on it in the opening segment. You can't come in and throw 6 straight balls and walk a guy who eventually comes around to score. So Bo Brisky gets the loss. If we were doing studs and duds, which I got to bring that back. I haven't done that in a while. Bo Brisky would be a dud tonight. 1 inning pitch, 1 hit, 1 run, 1 earned run, 2 walks, which again, you can't have that. And ultimately responsible for the loss against the Guardians tonight. So that said, I thought Flaherty was really good. 14 first pitch strikes tonight. And with Bo, I'm sorry, did I say Flaherty? I'm looking at too many things right now. 14 first pitch strikes for Flaherty. And the teams that are eyeing him in the deadline probably liked what they saw tonight. And not that one start dictates everything, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was one of those cherry on top solidifying moments for teams interested in Jack Flaherty to say, okay, it's worth it. We're going for a run. Let's go try and make it happen. And I know a lot of the rumors have been with Tarek Skubal, with Baltimore, with the Dodgers, and so on and so forth. But there could be teams that step up and are interested in Jack Flaherty as well, based on what package the Tigers could put together. I think Carson Kelly, who we've been talking about quite a bit tonight, or Jake Rogers is somebody that you pair with Jack Flaherty and try to get a nice haul in return, because you got Dylan Dingler, who's absolutely mashing in AAA Toledo right now and deserves an opportunity at the big league level. A lot of comments to get to in our second segment tonight. Appreciate everybody's participation. Levi Medema, do you see this game as an outlier in the new Tigers or as a sign that the new Tigers were an outlier? Great question, Levi. The pessimist in me would certainly lean towards the latter, that that's why I gave you my Denny Green. They are who we thought they were, a bad hitting team that has some good pitchers, and they're going to lose a lot of close games that are 1-run games, 2-1, 1-0, 3-2, and so on and so forth, like what we saw tonight. So unfortunately, and it's kind of funny. I have to laugh at myself, but again, this is my true authentic self, that I really do get fired up when they win and I get low when they lose. And I got to work on being a little bit more objective. And that's a critique of me, but at the same time, it's my passion and my love for this team. But I just don't want to lie to myself and try to make a push at a wild card when you've got all these teams in front of you, when you didn't address, and I say you didn't address, Scott Harris didn't address this team's needs that were clear at the beginning of the season and what could have been done in the offseason that wouldn't have cost you anything, signing a guy like Matt Chapman and JD Martinez. And I know if you have your what will Jake say tonight bingo card, that's always on there, and I'm predictable, but any bat could have been added to this team. And I just think it's a totally different season if you've got other bats. And I don't want to talk bad about Mark Canha and Gio Urshela because they've been fine, but they're not the answers to adding productive bats. And again, to use Ben Verlander, like we talked about last night, who's just being very critical of the top of the owner, Chris Ilitch. Spend some money. It's been 11 years, and this Tigers team used to spend, and there's no salary cap in Major League Baseball, so there's no reason not to. And the only player you spent money on in the last 5 years is Javi Baez, who's the worst baseball player in the history of Major League Baseball. That's not an exaggeration. Since we've been tracking things like OPS, Javi Baez is arguably the worst hitter in all of baseball among qualifying hitters. So, all right, I'll try not to get too upset. We're running out of time here. We're going to wrap up with the bullpen day tomorrow. Couple more comments to get to. Born Cool, if we're talking trade talk, I'm ready to ship off Kelly and bring up Dingler. Exactly, Born Cool. I mentioned that earlier. I hope you were watching that, but completely agree with you. Oh, yeah, there it is. Great minds think alike. I need a producer on the comment section here to feed me the comments. When I was at the ticket, we used to have somebody that would go through. Well, it depends. I mean, when I was hosting on the ticket late at night on weekends, it was just me, and I'd have to do this. But great minds think alike, Jake. You just touched on it. Ship off Kelly or Rogers, bring up Dingler. We got to see what that kid's got. Absolutely. YouTube user, this team needs an offensive upgrade in center field, right field, third base, shortstop, first base, and designated hitter. They do need a defensive upgrade at second base. Basically, they need to upgrade everywhere but Riley and maybe catcher. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And that's why when you look at hypothetical trade details, and again, this is not me trying to say, pound the table, you got to trade Tarek Skubal. But when you think of the notion of a guy like Jackson Holiday playing shortstop for you, and Heston Kjerstad, another top prospect from the Orioles organization, being one more piece, you start to think, well, maybe if Scott Harris didn't put us in this position from the beginning, we wouldn't be forced to do this. But at the same time, a trade to turn the tide of the direction of the organization might be worth at least having that conversation. I really do think it's one of those things. There's merit to both sides. And if we're truly being objective and listening to the other side, you could kind of rationalize and understand the point being made on both sides. All right, couple more comments to get into. Mary Jo Isaacson, my grandmother, who was at the game tonight. Not a good game, no hitting. Don't trade Skubal or Flaherty. I know, Grandma, they're your favorite players, but we'll see what old Scott Harris decides to do in the coming days. We've got a week until the deadline. Top of the hour with Corey Leland. Rogers is Scoob's personal catcher. Does he go as part of a deal? They almost traded him last deadline to the Dodgers. Harvey Baez. Yeah, Harvey's the worst. Yep, got to get rid of him. Yeah, I know AJ Hinch always shies away from the whole personal catcher thing, but it's pretty clear that Jake Rogers and Scoob will have that chemistry. All right, last one before we go to break. Canna and Gio haven't really been fine unless you put 3 or 4 WAR guys around them. Yeah, I agree. I shouldn't have said that. I don't think they've been fine. A better way to put that would be they've contributed at times. And when you look at all of the problems that the Tigers have, they're not at the very top of the list, but they are certainly lackluster and leave a lot to be desired in terms of those being the 2 guys you really thought were going to really turn this offense around with the offseason additions that Scott Harris and company made. So I appreciate that and completely agree. All right, one more segment to go, and then we will wrap up on this Wednesday night here on Locked On Tigers Postcast. Don't go anywhere. We tie a bow on it next. This episode of Locked On Tigers Postcast is brought to you by Game Time. It's the only ticketing app you'll ever need because it's simply the best. That's right. I use Game Time for all of my tickets, not just to sporting events either. We're talking concerts, comedy shows, any live event. You get in on the action on Game Time, and they actually reward people like me that sometimes wait to the last minute because the closer you get to game time, well, the time of the game, not the app. The time of the game, the more the price will go down. Game Time guarantees the lowest price possible. And listen, I also love how easy it is to use the app. Some apps, it's like you're scrolling around and then you got to go back one screen. No, not with the Game Time app. Very clear, user-friendly app. In fact, with Game Time, they have the all-in pricing feature, which is so nice and probably my favorite because you know exactly what you're going to pay. None of the BS where when you're using a ticket app, other ticketing apps, you think you got a great deal, you go to check out all the fees. No. You can do the all-in pricing feature app so you know exactly how much you're going to pay. And you know what? The Tigers, aside from the last 2 nights, they've been fun to watch. So earlier this season, I was telling you, go to different events, not Tigers games, but hey, we might actually have to change that. So go out, get to Comerica Park. We talked about road trips. Go on a road trip. We got Lions season coming up, the NFL, college football's coming up, Big Ten Media Days were today. Get out there, see Michigan, Michigan State. The list goes on. Game Time, though, is your only ticketing app that you need. Lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. How about that? So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKDOWNMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, rock on to the final segment of the day where we have to look ahead to the finale tomorrow afternoon. Nice little day baseball tomorrow afternoon from Progressive Field, 1:10 start. Gavin Williams on the bump for the Guardians. We don't know who will be on the bump for the Tigers, and depending on what you read, what you hear, it's probably another bullpen day. There's just not a lot of arms available to call up. That being said, I'm optimistic that the Tigers can get a split and somehow find a way to work through a difficult time where your pitching staff is banged up. And, although tonight wasn't pretty, last night was a valiant effort, you got to find ways to, when you don't have everybody, to, in this case, get a series split. But if not, listen, sometimes we got to call a spade a spade. A couple more games like tonight, and especially if it happens before the July 30th trade deadline, well, then I think we can kind of see the writing on the wall. But that being said, I still can get on board with the take it a day at a time, be monitoring everything, look at both sides of the coin, and be prepared to make moves if needed. But at the same time, hey, we'll see if the Tigers can right the ship a little bit. YouTube user with a great point. How pumped would you be for a Jackson Jobe start? It's not happening, unfortunately. Completely agree. That would be awesome. I don't get why it's not happening. I think this organization has a tendency to coddle the young guys. That's just me. What do I know? I'm just a talking pundit. Just ask AJ Hinch. But that being said, it would be awesome to see Jackson Jobe. And I know my guy at 97 won the ticket, Pat Caputo, missed producing his shows, but Pat and I go way, way back, and he had a video out that there's no reason not to give Jackson Jobe a start. And I completely agree. And the fact of the matter is, it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. Maybe, again, Matt Manning's hurt. Ty Madden's another name, and it's just tough to put together a possible arm to go out there. And I'm looking at Evan Woodbury's tweet from a day ago. The Tigers don't have scheduled starters in 3 of their next 6 games. This was yesterday. And if Flaherty is traded, that'd be 4 of their next 7 games. So there's just, I don't know how you get here other than the combination of bad luck, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And I don't even think having Jackson Jobe start would qualify as a desperate measure. Other than not wanting to rush him to the bigs, I don't see any reason why you don't start Jackson Jobe tomorrow in a big spot and maybe breathe some life into this Tigers team. And if nothing else, it would be entertaining for us. And that's really what it's about, right? Not exactly. But hey, appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. As always, it's a pleasure. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Detroit. It's a fun time of year, getting closer and closer to that trade deadline. Lions training camp started today. We'll have Locked On Lions postcast. I know everybody's tuned in to Locked On Lions with Matt Derry. He's a real one. Really appreciate all the hard work that he does. And I love listening to Locked On Lions. We've done a few crossover shows. We'll try to continue to do that. But check out Locked On Tigers with Scott Bentley, as I know we do. Locked On Pistons as well. It's all part of the Locked On Detroit Podcast Network and Locked On Sports Detroit Postcast, which I am always honored and humbled to be a part of it. All right. Have a wonderful night. And remember, day game tomorrow. So you have my permission to skip work or skip whatever responsibilities you have during the day. And we will talk to you tomorrow after the final out is recorded on Locked On Tigers Postcast. Have a wonderful evening.